Clint Eastwood revealed the 7 dumbest people in Hollywood. The man with no name rarely speaks without purpose. Behind that legendary squint lies Hollywood's most brutally honest observer, a director who's witnessed the industry's evolution across 6 decades with clear-eyed precision. Eastwood built his reputation on authenticity. In private conversations and occasional unguarded moments, his assessments of talent cut through Hollywood pretense with surgical accuracy. But his judgments were never one-dimensional. For every harsh critique, there was nuanced appreciation. For every dismissal, an unexpected moment of compassion. Today, we reveal Eastwood's most unfiltered assessments of the 7 personalities who left Hollywood's most respected director genuinely bewildered, not just by their limitations, but by an industry that rewarded them anyway.
I wake up, I have a kind of the blues, man.
7. Jeff Bridges. Eastwood liked his acting, but not his brain. He once said, "Great guy, but he's like a golden retriever that wandered onto set. Friendly, confused, always sniffing around." Clint had to explain basic blocking 3 times. The 4th time, he gave up. In February 1989, while preparing for a film that eventually collapsed in pre-production, Eastwood experienced firsthand the peculiar disconnect between Jeff Bridges' undeniable talent and his bewildering inability to process basic instructions. The scene unfolded at Warner Brothers during a technical meeting. Eastwood, known for his precision and economy, had just explained a relatively simple camera setup to the assembled cast. Jeff nodded along, looking completely engaged, recalled the film's cinematographer, who witnessed the exchange firsthand. Then, the moment Clint finished, Jeff raised his hand and asked a question that Clint had literally just answered word for word. Thinking Bridges might have been momentarily distracted, Eastwood patiently repeated the explanation. Bridges again nodded enthusiastically, only to ask the identical question a 3rd time just minutes later. After the 4th repetition, Eastwood didn't display anger. Something more surprising happened. He laughed. Instead of getting frustrated, Clint seemed almost charmed, the cinematographer continued. He put his hand on Jeff's shoulder and said, "You're a hell of an actor, Jeff. Let's just have the AD walk you through this tomorrow." This moment crystallized Eastwood's complex feelings about Bridges. Genuine affection mixed with professional bafflement. Unlike others who would make his list, Bridges earned Eastwood's fundamental respect. The director frequently cited The Last Picture Show as one of his favorite performances of the 1970s, praising Bridges' natural authenticity that can't be taught. What fascinated Eastwood wasn't just Bridges' scattered focus, but the strange contradictions within it. During that same pre-production meeting, after struggling to grasp basic blocking concepts, Bridges suddenly offered a deeply insightful character observation that left the room silent. "That's the thing with Jeff," Eastwood told his AD afterward. "Just when you think there's nobody home, he says something so perfectly true that you realize he's operating on a completely different frequency. Not better or worse, just tuned to a station nobody else can hear." The golden retriever comparison wasn't meant cruelly. It reflected Eastwood's genuine affection for Bridges' combination of warmth, enthusiasm, and complete unpredictability. "Some minds work in straight lines," Eastwood once observed while discussing actors he'd worked with. "Jeff's works in beautiful, baffling circles. He'll miss the obvious thing right in front of him, then somehow see something profound that everyone else has overlooked." Despite never completing that film together, Eastwood maintained admiration for Bridges' career and performances. When Crazy Heart won Bridges his long-overdue Oscar in 2010, Eastwood sent a handwritten note that read simply, "Nobody deserves it more, even if you might forget where you put it." While Bridges represented a kind of lovable confusion that Eastwood found oddly endearing, our next entry struck him as something far less charming, intelligence deliberately abandoned in favor of a carefully constructed persona.
In the program, and you just kind of stay there like your whole life, and I was just like, I'm not doing that.
And you...
6. Charlie Sheen. They crossed paths in the Warner Brothers commissary, 1987. What Eastwood saw disturbed him deeply. He had the best start you could ask for, and then he fried what little wiring was left. On the record, Eastwood was polite. Off the record, too dumb to know he had it all. Charlie Sheen represents something uniquely tragic on Eastwood's list. Genuine talent and opportunity systematically destroyed by choice. Unlike some entries who simply lacked capacity, Sheen's decline represented something Eastwood found almost personally offensive, deliberate self-sabotage by someone who had been given every advantage. Their most revealing interaction occurred in 1987, shortly after Sheen's breakthrough in Platoon and Wall Street. Both men were working on the Warner Brothers. Lot, Eastwood directing Bird, his Charlie Parker biopic, and Sheen filming Young Guns. "I was having lunch with Clint when Sheen came into the commissary," recalled Forrest Whitaker, who was playing Parker in Eastwood's film. "What struck me wasn't just Clint's reaction to Charlie, but how he contrasted him with Martin, his father." According to Whitaker, Eastwood spoke with genuine reverence about Martin Sheen's professionalism and craft. But when observing Charlie, already showing signs of the volatility that would later define him, Eastwood's expression changed to something between concern and disappointment. "You see that kid?" Eastwood said quietly. "He's standing on his father's shoulders and thinks he's flying on his own power." What troubled Eastwood wasn't just Sheen's substance abuse. Hollywood has a long history of that, but the entitled attitude that accompanied it. While many actors struggle with addiction, Sheen's behavior suggested someone who believed himself exempt from both professional standards and natural consequences. During production meetings for Bird, Eastwood frequently used Sheen as a counterexample when discussing professionalism with his cast. "Clint never criticized Charlie directly in public settings," remembered the film's producer, "but he would emphasize points about preparation and professionalism by saying things like, 'Some of the young actors on the lot think talent alone is enough. They'll learn the hard way that talent without discipline is just wasted potential.'" As Sheen's career progressed and his behavior grew increasingly erratic, Eastwood's assessment evolved from disapproval to something closer to clinical observation, with occasional flashes of unexpected compassion. After Sheen's infamous 2011 meltdown that led to his firing from 2.5 Men, Eastwood surprised his production team with a rare moment of sympathy. "Everyone was joking about Sheen's tiger blood comments," recalled his longtime assistant director. "We expected Clint to pile on with his usual dry wit. Instead, he got quiet and said, 'That's a sick man destroying himself in public, and everyone's treating it like entertainment. There's nothing funny about it.'" This moment revealed the complexity of Eastwood's judgment, harsh assessment of Sheen's choices balanced with genuine concern for the human cost of his public unraveling. Still, Eastwood's final assessment remained unsparing. When asked about Sheen during a small directors' roundtable years later, his response was characteristically direct. Charlie had every advantage: looks, talent, family connections, early success. And he traded it all for temporary pleasures and permanent damage. That's not just sad. That's stupid on a level that's hard to comprehend. While Sheen represented self-inflicted intellectual deterioration that Eastwood found both offensive and tragic, our next entry earned a surprising measure of his sympathy, someone whose limitations came paired with refreshing self-awareness.
From maybe 10 years until 16, I was sort of like perpetually grounded because I started the first time I ever got in trouble.
5. Megan Fox. Candid cameras caught their interaction at a 2009 industry event. Her openness about her limitations genuinely surprised him. "Most beautiful people pretend to be something they're not," he told a colleague after. "She's exactly what she appears to be. There's honesty in that." Megan Fox represents one of the more surprising entries on Eastwood's list. Not because of her inclusion, but because of his unexpectedly nuanced view of her intellectual limitations. Their paths crossed at a 2009 Hollywood Foreign Press Association event. Fox, then at the height of her Transformers fame, was seated at a table adjacent to Eastwood's. What happened next was captured by multiple witnesses and revealed a side of both celebrities rarely seen in public. Fox approached Clint's table between courses, recalled a journalist who was present. Everyone expected the usual superficial celebrity exchange. Instead, she sat down and asked him point blank, "How did you transition from being taken seriously just for your looks to being respected as a director?" The question itself wasn't particularly insightful, but what followed created a lasting impression on Eastwood. When he began offering genuine advice about persistence and learning the craft, Fox stopped him with disarming candor. She put her hand up and said, "I should probably tell you that people think I'm really stupid, and they're not entirely wrong," remembered another attendee. The whole table went quiet. It was like she'd broken some unwritten Hollywood rule about maintaining your image. Rather than being put off by this admission, Eastwood appeared genuinely engaged by her honesty. Their conversation continued for several minutes, with Fox openly acknowledging her limited understanding of filmmaking while expressing genuine curiosity about the process. "What impressed me wasn't her intellect," Eastwood told his producer the next day. "It was her complete lack of pretense about it. Most beautiful people in this business construct elaborate facades to hide their limitations. She just laid hers on the table. There's a strange kind of integrity in that. This interaction revealed Eastwood's more complex standard for judging intelligence in Hollywood. While he valued conventional smarts, he placed equal importance on self-awareness and authenticity, areas where Fox scored higher than many of her peers. During a director's roundtable the following year, when another filmmaker made a dismissive comment about Fox's intelligence, Eastwood offered a surprisingly nuanced defense. "There are worse things in this business than being beautiful and not particularly deep," he observed. "At least she knows exactly what she is and isn't trying to convince you otherwise. I've worked with serious actors with half her self-awareness who think they're profound intellectuals." This didn't mean Eastwood considered Fox intellectually impressive. He still recounted with amusement the story of Fox allegedly asking a producer if directors received overtime pay, a fundamental misunderstanding of how the industry functions. "She's not going to solve complex equations anytime soon," he told his assistant director, "but she's smart enough to leverage what she has, and honest enough not to pretend it's something else." In Hollywood, that's rarer than you might think. Fox earned her place on Eastwood's list, not because he found her particularly unintelligent, but because he found her brand of limited but self-aware intelligence fascinating in an industry built on illusion and pretense. "Some dumb people think they're geniuses," he once observed while discussing industry personalities. "Some smart people pretend to be dumber than they are. Megan just is what she is. In a business full of people playing parts off camera, there's something almost refreshing about that level of transparency." While Fox's limitations came with disarming self-awareness that Eastwood found unexpectedly appealing, our next entry represented something he found far more troubling. Someone whose grasp on reality itself seemed fundamentally compromised.
Feel honored.
Don't. It's broken.
4. Sean Young. Eastwood witnessed her meltdown on a shared soundstage in 1989. It wasn't just unprofessional, it was disturbing. You can't direct someone who doesn't understand reality. She once argued with a veteran cinematographer about what a camera lens does. Clint didn't get angry, he got worried. Few Hollywood careers have followed a more troubling trajectory than Sean Young's. After breakthrough performances in films like Blade Runner and No Way Out, her promising career derailed amid increasingly erratic behavior that Eastwood observed with growing concern. Unlike his reactions to others on this list, Eastwood's response to Young evolved from professional frustration to genuine worry about her well-being, a rare instance where his assessment of someone's intellectual capacity was tempered by compassion for what he perceived as deeper issues. The defining incident occurred in 1989 on the Warner Brothers lot. Eastwood was preparing a scene for Pink Cadillac when production was interrupted by a disturbance on a neighboring soundstage where Young was working. "We heard shouting, then saw crew members coming out looking shell-shocked," recalled Eastwood's first assistant director. "Clint sent me to check what was happening, thinking it might affect our sound recording." What the AD discovered was Young in the midst of what appeared to be a complete professional meltdown, aggressively challenging her film's cinematographer about basic camera principles that no experienced actor would question. She was insisting that wide-angle lenses actually compress the background rather than expanding it, the opposite of reality, the AD explained. When the cinematographer tried to gently correct her, she became more insistent, eventually shouting that everyone was conspiring to make her look bad by using trick lenses. When Eastwood himself walked over to assess the situation, he witnessed Young continuing her tirade, now incorporating elaborate conspiracy theories about how the camera department was deliberately sabotaging her performance. Rather than displaying his typical impatience with unprofessional behavior, Eastwood's reaction surprised his crew. After observing for several minutes, he quietly asked his production manager to find out if Young had people supporting her, family or representatives who should be contacted. "It wasn't contempt I saw on Clint's face," remembered the AD. "It was concern." He recognized this wasn't just difficult behavior, but something more troubling. Back on his own set, Eastwood shared an unusually reflective moment with his cinematographer, Jack N. Green. "This business chews people up," he said, "especially women who start with everything. Beauty, talent, opportunity. The pressure does something to them. What we just saw wasn't stupidity. It was something breaking." This moment revealed Eastwood's capacity to distinguish between different kinds of not smart, recognizing when someone's disconnect from reality might stem from mental health challenges rather than simple intellectual limitations. That said, His professional assessment remained unequivocal. When a producer later suggested Young for a role in one of his films, Eastwood's response was firm, but more nuanced than his typical rejection. "I can't work with her," he said, "not because I dislike her, but because I don't think she's currently capable of the basic give-and-take directing requires. You need a shared reality to collaborate, and she's operating in a different one." Young's famous incidents, including the attempted Catwoman stunt where she appeared on the Warner Brothers lot in a homemade costume to confront Tim Burton after losing the role to Michelle Pfeiffer, only reinforced Eastwood's perception that her issues went beyond simple intellectual limitations. "Most difficult people are just difficult," he told his producer years later when Young's name came up. "Sean was something else entirely. You can work around stupid. You can't work around someone whose perception is fundamentally different from everyone else's." This compassionate assessment revealed an important distinction in Eastwood's hierarchy of Hollywood limitations, recognizing when someone's disconnect might deserve empathy rather than judgment. While Young's case evoked unexpected compassion from Eastwood, our next entry triggered one of his most visceral negative reactions, representing everything he found contemptible about manufactured celebrity.
Are you okay?
Don't you see that?
A few weeks ago. So long.
3. Paris Hilton. His reaction was caught on camera during a 2006 press junket. The question, would he ever cast Paris Hilton? His unscripted response stunned the room. "I don't cast props." She reportedly asked to audition for one of his westerns. His assistant confirmed. He hung up halfway through the pitch. Few figures in modern celebrity culture have provoked Eastwood's disdain more completely than Paris Hilton, not because he found her particularly unintelligent in the conventional sense, but because she represented what he considered the complete deterioration of Hollywood's meritocratic ideal. For a man who had worked his way up from uncredited bit parts to legend through decades of discipline and craft, Hilton's fame without talent success model struck him as both baffling and deeply troubling. The press junket incident became immediately infamous among entertainment journalists. During promotion for Flags of Our Fathers in 2006, a reporter from a celebrity-focused outlet asked Eastwood if he would ever consider Hilton for one of his films, noting her desire to be taken seriously as an actress. Eastwood's response, "I don't cast props," wasn't delivered with anger or mockery. What made it so devastating was his matter-of-fact tone, as though he were simply stating an obvious professional principle rather than delivering an insult. "The room got very quiet," recalled a journalist who was present, not because what he said was particularly shocking in content, but because of how casually he said it, like he was saying the sky is blue or water is wet. Just a simple fact not worth debating. What truly revealed Eastwood's feelings about Hilton wasn't this public dismissal, but a private incident that occurred a year earlier when her representatives contacted his production company to express her interest in a Western he was developing. "I was on the extension when the call came in," remembered his longtime personal assistant. The agent was pitching Paris for a supporting role, emphasizing how she wanted to totally reinvent herself and show her serious side. According to multiple sources, Eastwood listened silently for approximately 30 seconds before interrupting. "I think you have the wrong number," he said flatly. "This is a film production company. We make movies here." Then he hung up. When his assistant asked if she should take a message if they called back, Eastwood's response revealed the depth of his disdain. "If they call back, tell them I've retired, or died, whichever seems more convincing." What elevated Hilton to the upper echelons of Eastwood's list wasn't just her lack of traditional talent, but what he saw as the cynical calculation behind her entire public persona, the deliberate construction of celebrity without substance. Clint made a distinction between people with limited intelligence and people who deliberately avoided developing any intelligence at all, explained his longtime production partner. He placed Paris firmly in the second category, someone who had every opportunity to learn and grow, but actively chose not to because being vapid was more marketable. This assessment was crystallized during a director's dinner where the conversation turned to the changing nature of fame. When someone mentioned Hilton's success, despite her lack of discernible talents, Eastwood offered a rare philosophical observation. "There's a difference between being unintelligent and being anti-intelligent," he noted. "Paris represents something new and disturbing, the deliberate rejection of substance as a marketing strategy. It's not that she can't be more than she is. It's that she's calculated that being nothing specific is more profitable than being something real. Despite the harshness of this assessment, those close to Eastwood noted that his criticism of Hilton lacked the personal animosity he exhibited toward others on his list. To him, she was less an individual failure than a troubling symptom of cultural decline. He didn't hate Paris, clarified his assistant director. He hated what she represented, the severing of the connection between achievement and recognition. For someone who had earned every step of his success through discipline and craft, that disconnection wasn't just confusing, it was offensive at a foundational level. While Hilton represented the triumph of empty celebrity over substance, our next entry earned Eastwood's contempt for different reasons. Unearned arrogance masking profound ignorance.
So here we are.
Raise your hand.
Okay.
2. Steven Seagal. Their confrontation happened during pre-production for The Rookie, 1990. Seagal was shooting on an adjacent stage at Warner Brothers. After witnessing his treatment of a female crew member, Eastwood didn't just walk away, he intervened. "There are two things I can't stand," he told Seagal directly. "Men who hit women and men who think they're tougher than they are. You're running 2 for 2. Few things triggered Eastwood's contempt more reliably than phoniness, particularly when it came wrapped in bullying behavior. As someone who built his career playing men of genuine toughness and quiet dignity, he harbored special disdain for Seagal's manufactured machismo and treatment of those he perceived as beneath him. Unlike most entries on this list, Eastwood's assessment of Seagal wasn't based on second-hand reports or distant observation. It stemmed from direct interaction during a period when both men were working at Warner Brothers in the early 1990s. The confrontation happened during prep for The Rookie, confirmed Eastwood's first assistant director. Seagal was filming on a nearby stage and had been creating problems all week, showing up late, demanding script changes, treating crew disrespectfully. The situation came to a head when Eastwood personally witnessed Seagal berating a female production assistant who had delivered a message about a schedule change. According to multiple sources, Seagal's response was disproportionately aggressive, including threatening language and intimidating physical positioning. Rather than ignoring the situation, as many established directors might have done with a problem on another production, Eastwood directly intervened. "Clint walked straight over," recalled a grip who witnessed the exchange. "He didn't raise his voice, he never does, but he positioned himself between Seagal and the PA and said something quietly that made Seagal immediately back down." While the exact words weren't audible to most bystanders, Eastwood's production manager overheard the exchange and confirmed that Eastwood directly challenged both Seagal's behavior and his carefully constructed tough guy image. He told him, "There are 2 things I can't stand: men who intimidate women and men who pretend to be something they're not. You're doing both, and neither one is going to continue while you're working near my set." This direct confrontation revealed what truly earned Seagal his high ranking on Eastwood's list. Not just intellectual limitations, but the combination of those limitations with bullying behavior and fraudulent self-presentation. The teleprompter comment, comparing Seagal's reading of simple dialogue to quantum physics, stemmed from Eastwood's direct observation of Seagal struggling through basic scenes on the adjacent production, requiring multiple takes for even straightforward lines. "What bothered Clint wasn't that Seagal needed help," explained someone who worked closely with Eastwood during that period. "It was that he needed help while simultaneously presenting himself as some kind of intellectual and spiritual master." The disconnect between self-image and reality was what Clint found both absurd and offensive. Despite opportunities to work with Seagal during the height of his box office appeal in the early 1990s, Eastwood consistently refused. According to those close to him, this wasn't just professional disdain, but a moral judgment about character. Clint believed there was something fundamentally dishonest about Seagal, not just his inflated martial arts credentials or his pseudo-spiritual pronouncements, but a deeper kind of fraudulence, noted his longtime producer. He considered him someone who had built an entire career and persona on intimidating people into not questioning his obvious limitations. This assessment was solidified when Eastwood encountered multiple crew members who had worked on Seagal's productions and reported similar experiences of bullying behavior and intellectual posturing. "The stories were always the same," the producer continued. Seagal couldn't remember basic dialogue but would lecture experienced filmmakers about camera angles. He would struggle with simple physical coordination but claim mastery of multiple martial arts disciplines. And he would consistently use physical intimidation to prevent people from challenging these obvious contradictions. What secured Siegel's high ranking on Eastwood's list wasn't just these limitations, but the aggressive defensiveness that accompanied them, using intimidation to mask inadequacy. Clint made a distinction between different kinds of stupid, explained his first AD. There's innocent stupid, which he could tolerate. There's self-aware stupid, which he sometimes found endearing. Then there's aggressive stupid, people who not only refuse to recognize their limitations, but actively threaten those who notice them. That's where he placed Siegel, and it's why he refused to ever work with him. While Siegel represented aggressive stupidity backed by physical intimidation, our final entry earned Eastwood's top ranking for different reasons, managing to combine nearly every quality he found most objectionable in Hollywood personalities.
TJ, thank God you're here. How'd you find me? It's the only chicken and waffle place in all of Holland.
1. Rob Schneider, comedy's biggest mystery. The incident that cemented his reputation occurred during filming at Warner Brothers in 1999. Schneider wandered onto Eastwood's set uninvited. What happened next became studio legend. Eastwood said nothing publicly, but his private assessment was devastating. That guy's IQ is the same as his film budget, and both are inflated. Rob Schneider's ascent to the top position on Eastwood's list represents the perfect storm of qualities the director found most objectionable in Hollywood personalities: limited intellectual capacity, combined with disproportionate ego, lack of self-awareness, and disrespect for the filmmaking craft itself. Unlike some entries who earned their ranking through a single incident or specific limitation, Schneider secured his position through what industry insiders described as a comprehensive portfolio of bewildering behavior that Eastwood witnessed firsthand. The defining incident occurred in 1999 during production of True Crime at Warner Brothers. Eastwood was working through a complex scene with Isaiah Washington when Schneider, who was not involved in the production in any capacity, wandered onto the set uninvited during an active take. It was beyond unprofessional, recalled Eastwood's director of photography, Jack N. Green. Everyone in this business knows you never walk onto an active set, especially during a take. It's filmmaking 101. Rather than recognizing his error when the take was ruined, Schneider compounded it by approaching Eastwood directly, interrupting his conversation with Washington to pitch himself for a role, seemingly unaware or unconcerned that he had just disrupted a working production. Eastwood's response became legendary among the crew, not for its harshness, but for its surgical precision. After listening silently to Schneider's impromptu pitch, he asked a single question: "Do you know what we were just doing when you walked in?" When Schneider responded with confusion, Eastwood didn't raise his voice or display anger. He simply said, "We were working. This is what it looks like when professionals make movies. You should try it sometime." The interaction might have ended there, but Schneider, missing the dismissal entirely, proceeded to offer Eastwood unsolicited advice about how the scene could be improved, despite having no context for the narrative or characters. That's when we saw the famous Eastwood squint, remembered the script supervisor. Not the dramatic one from his films, but the real one. The one that means he's genuinely baffled by someone's behavior. After listening for approximately 30 seconds, Eastwood finally interrupted Schneider's monologue with deadly understatement. "I think your set is somewhere else. I'd hate for you to miss your call time." This interaction alone would have earned Schneider a place on Eastwood's list, but what secured his top ranking was the consistent pattern of similar behavior observed across multiple encounters. A combination of profound ignorance about filmmaking fundamentals paired with unshakable confidence in offering his opinions to established professionals. Most intellectually limited people in Hollywood at least develop specialized knowledge in their particular area, observed Eastwood's production designer. Schneider was unique in his combination of comprehensive ignorance and absolute certainty. He knew virtually nothing about any aspect of filmmaking, but felt qualified to lecture Oscar winners on their craft. The IQ equals film budget comment, made privately to his production team after the incident, reflected Eastwood's genuine bewilderment at Schneider's success, despite what he perceived as severe limitations in basic comprehension. Clint wasn't being deliberately mean, clarified his first AD. He was expressing genuine amazement that someone with such fundamental misunderstandings of how films are made had nonetheless built a career making them. It was almost anthropological interest, like discovering a bird that shouldn't be able to fly, but somehow manages to stay airborne. What particularly offended Eastwood wasn't just Schneider's intellectual limitations, but his complete lack of respect for the craft of filmmaking itself, treating complex artistic and technical processes as trivial matters that required no particular knowledge or skill. Clint could forgive almost any limitation if it came with humility and respect for the work, explained his longtime producer. What he couldn't forgive was someone treating filmmaking, something he considered both art and craft worthy of lifelong dedication, as something so simple that anyone could do it without study or effort. This combination, intellectual limitation, overconfidence, and fundamental disrespect for the medium, earned Schneider the top position on Eastwood's private list, representing everything he found most troubling about changing standards in Hollywood. It wasn't personal animosity, insisted his director of photography. It was almost philosophical objection. Schneider represented for Clint the triumph of marketing over merit, celebrity over craft, confidence over competence, everything that threatened the values he believed had made American filmmaking great.